Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. As I tell you almost every week, I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I've been working with ADHD for, well, since before there was ADHD as a diagnosis. And also, I am the father of a couple of ADHD kids, and my audio engineer says we're on board. So anyway, and I also married into a family with a whole bunch of ADHDers. This is well before there was ADHD or I knew anything about it. So I have had most of the experiences you can have with ADHD, I would guess. I have my kids. I have one of each, a hyperactive male and a inattentive female. And my wife is not decided. She may be in there or not as well. Okay, so anyway, one of the things we know about ADHD and have to keep remembering ourselves, even if we are just in the family and not having ADHD ourselves, is that it's a neurologic condition. Okay, it's not because people enjoy making mistakes or irritating other people or any of those other things. It's the neurotransmitters in the brain. By the way, I'm a neuropsychologist too. Anyway, neurotransmitters in the brain, which are the way the brain sends signals, and basically that's how we think, are depleted on ADHDers fairly regularly. That causes discomfort, dopamine especially. And I guess the good thing about dopamine is exercise increases dopamine, and of course, stimulant medication also increases dopamine. That's why it's taken. It's not because it has it. Is this magic woo juice? It's because it specifically increases dopamine and norepinephrine in the brain. And if you get your child on it early enough, it seems to make some changes in the brain that don't require as much dopamine later on. So that's a whole nother thing. But what I want to talk about is with ADHD, you have to figure out how you're going to work with behaviors and emotions that aren't always in very good control. And I've been a psychotherapist for a long, long time, and there are all these different kinds of therapies. But the ones you need to know the most about are the behavior therapies. That's behavior modification and cognitive behavior therapies. Those are the most scientifically oriented of the therapies, and they are the most focused on action, observable behavior. And, they're, basically it's not all that different from the way a good dog trainer trains an animal. I used to have an acquaintance who was a world-renowned dog trainer. She trained them for these agility things where they go through the poles and the tunnels, and which is pretty amazing to watch. But that's aside. But she used to train, and she used to say, "Punishment? God, you never know what you're going to get if you punish all the time. But it probably won't be what you want." So hold on to that one for a while. I mean, just real quickly through the therapies. The major ones are psychoanalytic, which is the Freudian stuff and the neo-Freudians and all that stuff. And that's based on looking back at your past life for, you can be in that therapy for 20 years. Anyway, it's had its popularity. It was one of the first big therapies. Then there's Gestalt therapy, which is more about getting your emotions out. And of course, we don't, with ADHDers, we don't really need to worry about that one. Then there's a Rogerian therapy or client-centered, and that's basically nice guy therapy, sort of, oh, and how does that make you feel? And all those things that those of us who were not raised in that tradition have facial tics when people say that. How does that make you feel? That implies that you aren't powerless over your emotions and things make you feel a certain way. And the whole cognitive approach is that you have emotions because of the way you think about things and the way you evaluate events in your life or things that happen to you, if you will. Okay, it's sort of like, I think I've used this example before. If you're in a traffic jam, there's going to be, everybody's in the same situation, but some people are going to have different reactions than other people. There's going to be the guy pounding on the steering wheel with his veins popping out in his neck, and he's screaming at everybody and saying things to them that he'd never say if he were on the street talking to them face to face. That's well, then there are other people who are, oh my God, they're terrified. They're scared. They're, oh, what happened? What's wrong? I'm going to be late. Oh, they're like that. And there'll be one or two that are just kind of chilling, got some music going, just relaxing, da 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 da. But they're all in the same situation, and somebody's going to be depressed. Oh, God, why does this always happen to me? But they're in the same situation. Objectively, they should all be having the same emotion if emotion is controlled by the event, but it isn't, and it doesn't, and it never has, and never will. We, as ADHD parents, have a huge responsibility because we've got kids that don't fit in to the way the system they have to live in is designed. They typically have more trouble in school, not because they're not smart enough. Matter of fact, a ton of them. My ADHD son is the smartest one in my family, and well over 130. But school, oh my Lord. And so it's got nothing to do with intelligence. It's got everything to do with what they're asking him or her to do. And that's what that's where you get into troubles with an ADHD kid, with frustration and that sort of thing. And you make it worse with a lot of criticism. I say routinely, your average ADHD kid gets 70 critical comments a day. And that's what leads to real low self-esteem. I'm a screw up. I can't do anything right. That sort of thing. When you get 70 critical comments, and 70 sounds like a lot, but I remember I had one family in my office, and mom, I think she went through her 70 critical comments in less than a half hour in the office. The kid couldn't do anything right. Sit still. Don't. It was tiring for me, to listen to. And I had, when we broke up, and I mean, by that I mean the kid went out and we were still talking. I was still talking to the parents. It was like, hey, yelling up a little bit. You're not going to get what you want when you do that to him. Point out every little thing he does wrong. And so, what is cognitive therapy approach? What is the approach? The approach on cognitive therapy is that thoughts control emotions. If you're thinking what a crappy day this is, you're going to find stuff that reinforces that view of the way the day went. Oh crap, I dropped an egg on the floor making breakfast. Oh crap, the toast burned. Oh crap, I'm late. Oh, maybe everything is going to build to make that worse and worse and worse, because that's what you're focused on. The other tricky thing is that we all have a favorite bad emotion. Some of us are prone to be angry. Some of us are prone to be impatient, which is just a milder form of anger. Some of us are prone to be sad or scared. It's the whole run. The whole run of emotions are basically controlled by the way you think about things. And if you don't believe that, you can try a thing called a gratitude procedure. And basically, every day, first thing in the morning, you write down and think about 5 things that you're grateful for in your life. You'd be amazed at what that does to your outlook on life. You get up in the morning, oh crap, I had a lousy night and my back's sore and anyway, and then, but you go through and say, oh, what am I thankful for? I'm thankful. I've got a good marriage. I've got healthy kids. I've got a job that I love. I love where I live. It doesn't have to be major league things too either. It can be, I had such a great cheeseburger for lunch yesterday. It was the best one I've ever had, I think. Little things, and they don't have to be all home runs, little stuff that will change your mood for the day. And it lasts. Doesn't mean that you can't, find bad stuff and bring yourself down if you want to all day long. The other thing you need to understand is that your favorite bad emotion is basically based on your past learning, and your kids learn it. It's a favorite bad emotion is also based on that. With an ADHD hyperactive one, at least, you're way more likely to have frustration than almost anything else. With an inattentive type, you're most likely to have some anxiety. Why can't I do as well as my friend Beth? Kind of thing. So cognitive behavior therapy, like I said, focuses on the emotions and it focuses on the thought patterns that are behind the emotions. And we all have them, okay? Everybody does, and everybody has usually a favorite bad emotion. And the whole behavior philosophy is it's supposed to be more scientific. So we have to keep track of that stuff. We have to track little bits and pieces of this whole area of our lives so we can keep some kind of control over it. The old saw among all the strict behaviorists, if you ain't measuring it, you can't control it. And frankly, that's not, most of us don't pay that much attention. We just, I'm having a crap day, but it's based on something, and you need to work. If you want to get control over it, you've got to measure it. You've got to keep track of it. You don't have to get the computer out every time or something. You can do it on a steno book, that you keep stuffed in your back pocket. But you need to know, like in your child, most of us, one of the things I get the most complaints about from people, and especially people who are responding to to this show, is temper tantrums. They scare me and da 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 da. Well, what's the way to start controlling that? Well, first of all, you got to figure out, is there a pattern? Is it every day after he comes back from school, or every day after she plays with this one girl, or but you have to have some knowledge of that. You can't just, I will tell you the truth. My kids, I mostly, until I found out about ADHD, and unfortunately that was pretty late in their lives, I waited until something happened before I did anything. Every time, okay, let's go deal with the temper tantrum. I wasn't thinking about controlling it or preventing it or any of that stuff. I was just a kid, just growing up, da 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 da. And unfortunately, that with an ADHD kid, you've got to be more strategic than that. Tactical is what I was doing. I was just, waiting until something happened and then I'd respond, and sometimes, depending on the kind of a day I was having, sometimes wasn't the best way to respond. But you're going to be sharper than that. You're going to know what's going on. Okay, so what you want to do? First of all, is just figure out how you're going to mark it down. I mean, I use a day timer all the time, and I've got the little calendar in there that's, so I just mark, when a certain thing is happening, and I figure out a symbol or a short abbreviation that works for me. So if you want temper tantrums, first thing to do is find out when they're happening. Okay, is there a pattern? Do that for a couple of 3 weeks, and then see if there's a pattern. Okay, it's always after school. It's always getting up in the morning. There are all possibilities. There also might be that it's just that you don't see a pattern. But so then you got to go to the next step, and you've got to figure out, okay, what exactly is going on when he's having a temper tantrum? Say, using he because that was my ADHD hyperactive kid. So what is going on? Did kids make fun of him? Did the teacher make fun of him? Teachers have a lot of influence on a kid, but a lot of them don't know ADHD from, they aren't very well trained in how to handle ADHD. They mostly just want peace and quiet in the classroom, and I don't know how many messages I've gotten from teachers saying, would you please put this child on medication? He's so disruptive, and it's like, you're focusing on the wrong thing. How he acts out in your classroom is not my main issue. I'm trying to do what's best for the ADHD part of things. And so anyway, so that's not what we're looking at. But we're looking at, you measure it. Okay, is there a pattern? Yeah. If there's not a pattern, of events in his life, what's the pattern of emotions? What happens? What's going on? Is it always frustration? My teacher wants me to do this and I don't know how to do it and I can't, or is it one of the ones is that we've talked a little bit about rejection sensitive dysphoria. And I think it's, it's a great name, and except that it's repetitive of a neurologic condition that also is called RSD. But it's basically the idea they're so sensitive. Okay. And why are they so sensitive? They're so sensitive because they think they aren't good enough. They're always thinking, I screwed up again. I get, and you really want to work on that, because that's something that interferes with the development of a realistic approach, or a resilient approach rather, to the world, and to themselves. I mean, if you got an ADHD kid, you got to be teaching resilience, how to learn from mistakes, how to expect mistakes, and just respond to them in a positive way, in a way that like, okay, what can we learn from this? So what do I need to do better next time? That kind of thing. If you can teach that approach, things are going to get better. But anyway, so you're looking for patterns, you're looking for emotions, you're looking for, is it always when they're with this friend, or is it always when they go over to this parent's house, or is it always when they've had this class, or just what's the pattern? And then you can start working on talking to them a little bit about, okay, when you were feeling all that anger or all that frustration or whatever they were feeling, what were you thinking about? Well, how were you thinking about that? Or if you don't want to just say that, oh, so why were you thinking that way? Or just want to get into them a little bit, without challenging them, just in a kind of a friendly, curious way. Hey, what's going on? We all do this kind of stuff. What's the way you're doing it? And okay, so then well, is there a way you could have handled that without getting so angry? Is there a way you could have thought about that without getting so angry? And it's helpful if you got some ideas yourself before you get too far into this. But it is important to change that way of thinking about a situation and recognize that you can do it. Now, people sometimes have a lot of trouble with this. I've often said, I could convince a person that they could lose 50 pounds in 3 weeks easier than I can convince them that their thoughts control their emotions. People don't, anyway, but it's true. It's true. The way you think about stuff determines your emotions. If you're one of these, nobody says that to me kind of guys, you're going to be angry a lot because people say stuff. And if you're always looking for how to be afraid, then you're always going to find something to be afraid of. And I'm not even talking politics. Okay. So those behaviors, those thoughts rather, they cause those emotions. Those emotions then cause you to behave in certain ways. For kids, if your kiddo is one of these who's always protecting his self-esteem kind of thing and is always doing it with anger, he's going to get into a lot of fights. He's going to get into a lot of hassles, and you have to first believe it yourself that, the thoughts that you're having are what's causing the thing. Billy can be a pain in the butt if all day long, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be angry at him. And that, people have, adults have troubles believing that, understanding it. But that's the truth. That's what happens. So anyway, we're about out of time for today. Now, I will be doing another session on cognitive behavior therapy. Behavior therapy is, I didn't get into that very much, but it's more controlling behaviors, controlling actions. And most people actually do cognitive behavior therapy more so than do just straight behavior stuff. Because you only got, you got rewards and you got punishments. And you don't want to get stuck in that because you'll end up doing more punishments than rewards. And then it doesn't work very well. People respond better when asked nicely. Oh, but one other thing, a thing called successive approximation. When you're making changes, reward small changes. Okay? Small changes. If you're teaching your kid to hit a baseball, you don't start out throwing a 90-mile-an-hour fastball at him. You lob it so he can hit it, or maybe put it on the stand and, on the tee and have him start there and then work his way up until he can, then there's slow pitch. And then there's a kid his own age throwing the ball. And that's successive approximation. And it isn't just in sports. It's pretty much anything we learn is successive approximation. Learning to read, first you learn to recognize the letters, then you get the alphabet, so all the letters. Then you understand how they go together to make a word. Then pretty soon you know about sentences, da 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 da. And hopefully you don't have to diagram sentences. But those of you out there who are a little older will recognize that one. That was tedious. But anyway, a little bit at a time. And always be looking for something to reward for, to say, oh, hey, good job, man. You know, even if it wasn't quite the outcome you wanted, you got to find something that's positive. And I don't mean like one of these helicopter parents. I don't, the kids got to learn disappointment too. So I'm not really a fan of participation trophies because they're meaningless. That means it's meaningless for everybody. And that isn't the way the world works. Okay, so I am Dr. Terry James Gingras. This is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. We've been talking about cognitive behavior therapies and how to use it at home. We'll discuss it in a little more detail next time. My website is terrygingrasphd.com. I have a Calendly thing on there, and you can sign up for a session with me just to talk about coaching, which I'm an ADHD coach. I'm a high performance coach. I'm a high performance executive coach. So if any of those categories are where you're at, give me a call and we'll work it out and see. We'll talk together for a little bit for free and see if we can stand working with each other. Okay, catch you next time, and make the world safe for ADHD, and be proud of your ADHD child's accomplishments.